Hello, everyone. Today we are going to talk about a topic that I love, how to grow your public adjusting support team the smart way. The last webinar we did was how to bring on adjusters and to onboard them onto your company. So if you don't have that, it's on YouTube. I'll send out the link. But as a counterpart to that, I've actually put together some top ideas to bring on non-adjusting staff or non-estimator type staff onto your roster, onto your public adjusting company. Whether you already have staff and you're just looking on better ways of onboarding them so it's not so labor intensive for you or for other staff of yours, or you've never brought anyone on before. Obviously, it goes 50-50. Some people will bring on another adjuster and the two of you kind of work autonomously. And some people, if you're kind of a solo public adjuster, opt to bring on some sort of support staff so that it frees up your time to do what I personally think public adjusters should be spending their time on, signing new claims and adjusting and settling claims. So that's how we're going to roll for this. So this is kind of the second half to that, but very, very different content. All right, so today's agenda, a lot of this comes from is my corporate life pre-2000, right? So when I was still working in soul-sucking corporate life, we used a lot of SMART goals, and I'll explain what that analogy is. We're also going to talk about having a talent philosophy, about how to bring in the right type of person. I'm not just talking about skills they have or the check boxes they can click off for you. I'm talking about making sure that they're actually a fit for how you run your company. And I'll give you a couple examples on that. And then the humdinger of all of them is how to design a 90-day onboarding plan. I do this in my own company, even if they're not my staff, right? So when we bring on devs, I write the 90-day onboarding plan for them. So to me, a developer is like an adjuster is to you, right? So we have that going on. But I went back, and when I did that webinar, I was like, I should have wrote a 90-day, well, I have written 90-day onboarding plans for adjusters. So we'll talk about that at the end too, just so you have that covered. First things first, even before we're going to talk about the agenda, I want to talk about something that a lot of people don't think about in detail when they're going to hire staff. So let me know in the chat, or if you're watching this on YouTube in the replay, down in the comments, do you currently have staff on your company, and what type of role are they? Right, so I'm curious. So one of the things is I see a lot is I'm so busy, I have to hire staff, but I'm so busy, I don't have time to hire staff. I don't have time to interview them. I don't have time to train them. You're so busy, busy. You have to let go of some of that workload, right? You have to look at your core competency, the things. And again, I did another webinar called, I forget the name of it, I'll link it, but it's $1, $10, $100 work. So the core of what you're doing, if you're a public adjuster, your $100 work is adjusting. Your $1 work is answering support emails. Like your $10 work is maybe producing a proof of loss. So for the $100 work for someone in your office might be producing a proof of loss. So just because it's $100 for you and $1 for you doesn't mean that $1 is $1 for somebody else. You kind of get what I'm saying. So we've got senior administrators, apprentices, new PAs coming. Someone mentioned that there's no staff. They're the owner operator. It's the hardest thing to go from solo, like the owner operator, to one person. But once you hire one person successfully and they take some of the work off, it's like game on. We've always had, at ClaimWizard, for example, even though our business run is completely different than yours, we're a software company, we've always had developers and stuff, but we never had like extra support staff or anything. It was always me. Somebody says here, it's a challenge to train and let go of tasks. I have a solution for you when we're done. Well, actually not when we're done, it's right here. But when we hired our first non-developer person, like I was like, game on, let's go. Like we hired more. It felt really good to get those things chunked off your table. So the first thing, even before you think about who do I need to hire, or I need to hire someone running around, flailing, arms in the air, that kind of thing, think about what you need to take off your plate. So someone here says sales adjusters, admin assistants, investigators, bookkeepers. So that's, a kind of what I would consider like a medium-sized public adjusting company, because you have all that ancillary staff. I've seen public adjusting companies and they're like 10 adjusters and they all kind of work on their own and do their own thing and don't really talk to each other, but they're all technically in the same company. I don't really consider that a big company. It's just 10 solos working together. What I want you to do, and when you get these resources, you're going to have clickable links. So whoever said it's a challenge to train and let go of tasks, I'm going to say, hell yeah, I'm completely with you on that. It is the hardest thing, because what is your immediate answer? I don't have time to train or to let go of tasks, but you know what? I'm the best person. No one can do it as good as I can do it, which is baloney, because there's tons of people out there. We don't want to let go of it. Part of it's our ego. Part of it is, we have secret sauce. Well, I'm not asking you to let go of those things. I'm asking you to think about letting go of the other things that are sucking your time from doing that secret sauce type stuff. So what I'm actually working through right now is, and if anybody's been in my webinars before, I'm all in the church of Mike Michalowicz, right? He's written Pumpkin Plan, Clockwork, which is what I'm doing right now, Fix This Next, which I'm actually an advisor for, a bunch of other books. Clockwork is the thing you folks need. And then someone said it's great until you let the task go and you're like, why did I hold on to that? And that's pretty much where my life has been right now. I like run around singing, woo, it's amazing. I don't have to do this anymore. And my staff does it better than me because they focus on it and they're not so scattered with a million other things. Is what I want you to do, and I did this as part of a class I was taking, is I time tracked. Now, you may be accustomed to time tracking if you're billing clients for things. All hail Louisiana right now. You have to bill by the hour. You can't charge percentages. Maybe you're an estimator that charges, by the hour or whatever the case may be. This is a different type of time tracking. We're not talking billable time tracking. We're saying, how is your time being carved up? So in the corner here, I printed out this time analysis worksheet, right? I was very fancy about it and I hand wrote it in. The top of the day, my handwriting was nice. At the end, I was like, whatever, just jot it down, right? So I said 8:38. I sat at my desk and I opened email. 8:40, something came in. I had to answer that. So I spent 22 minutes doing something else. Then I got distracted. I had to do something else. Then I had to do a phone call. That took 30 minutes. Then I had to, my kid came in and disrupted me. That was 4 minutes because, virtual schooling. And when I looked at this, and this was actually a pretty good day because my biggest one, I think I had 30 minutes or 35 minutes of uninterrupted time to work on something. My other days, my record was 12 minutes before I got interrupted. So think about, even when you're in doing an office day or even when you're out at a client, how many times does your phone ring? How many times do you get emails where you're meeting with a client? Like, if you're taking time to answer all those, that's a distraction. Write down everything. Are you doing it? Is it things you actually do, right? So if you're adjusting or you're estimating, maybe even taking pictures, you can outsource pictures. Who knows? Like, you really have to look at how your time is spent. Sitting down and actually running Xactimate and doing the estimates, whatever, or that could be your doing. Deciding are things that you're asked to make a decision on. So my coach, Emily from Run Like Clockwork, actually advised me. I said, I'm doing all these things, Emily. And she said, no, you're deciding these things. And I said, how so? She goes, if someone on your team can't answer a question or doesn't know what proof of loss form or, to use, they come to you and you finish the task, you had to, because someone else couldn't decide, they had to pass it to you. So basically everything flipped for me and I was deciding. Delegating is a true delegation. Delegating is you have given someone a task and they are now responsible for the process and the outcome. If you say to someone, I want you to take these checks and deposit them into the bank and balance, checkbook or something. Obviously, I don't do the finances here. If they go to the bank and write out the deposit slip there or write out the deposit slip in the office and then drive to the bank, like, what difference does it make as long as the checks are getting deposited when they're supposed to and they're balancing the books at the end of the day? Like, That's the thing. And you leave the process up to them. The outcome is, I want these checks deposited. Did you do it? Yes, perfect. I don't care about the details. Let's go on. And then that task is taken off your list. You know, when checks come in, they know how to deposit them. And that's something, it's like, why did I ever do this kind of thing? Design time is the kind of thing, especially if you're working in sales, definitely get the Clockwork book, get it on Kindle, get it on book, get it on whatever, Audible, get it wherever you can. Design is when you spend creating ideas for your company, or, you know, in some cases, sales and things like that. And distraction is exactly that. That's the 50 they added. Things that you're getting pulled away from the tasks you should be focusing on, even if it's a phone call, even if it's, oh, something dinged on my email, I'm going to clear out my spam. That's all a distraction. So you need to think about this. But once you have that list, and I did it for a full week, and I said, look at all these tasks that I'm doing that I could give over to this brand new person I hired, and she doesn't have enough work yet. Like, I was like, here you go, here you go, here you go. I scanned them in, I sent her my sheet, and I said, okay, all the things I highlighted, they're now yours. Let's talk about them. So I got stuff off of my plate by doing that, and you could do the same, but you're not actually going to know what you can take off your plate until you actually write it down. You may think you need let's say you may think you need a front office person, and we're going to go over what all those titles are. Front office person answers the phone, deals with clients, packages out welcome letters, opens the mail, sets appointments for your adjusters. We'll just kind of say that's what it is. And you're like, that's what I need. But really what you need, because you're looking at your task, you're like, well, I don't really get that much of that. Maybe that's a pain point, but it's not a lot of volume. Maybe what you really need is a back-end processor, someone to do the checks, to call the mortgage companies, to sit on hold with the adjusters, to do all these other, generate all your paperwork, generate all your documentation, put together all your reports. When you look at your time tracking, you're going to be able to tell where your time suck is the most. Maybe you love talking to clients when they call you on the phone and you don't want to give that away. So why would you hire someone to do it? Take off your back end stuff or whatever you want. We have lots of roles. We'll talk about for public adjusting companies. Time tracking is the first place. Without this, you're not going to know where you're hemorrhaging the fastest, if that makes sense. Okay, so now we're going to say, what roles do you need, right? So these are the major roles besides adjusters and estimators that you may need for your public adjusting company. Your company is much different than, say, an accounting or CPA firm or a law firm where they have way different roles and way different responsibilities than you guys need. Some of the things that you may need as a public adjusting company, solo or multinational, I don't care. Front end support, we talked about phones, doing emails for you, right? So you're not living in your inbox. If something is critical enough to reach to you, they can contact you, get the answer, formulate it back on your behalf, whatever the deal is. Client support, communication, onboarding new claims, setting appointments with carriers, setting appointments with vendors, setting appointments with clients. Front end person is outward facing. They need to match the vibe of your company. And when we talk about, kind of the traits that you need, we're definitely going to be covering that. Back-end support is just this, all the paperwork, entering claim data, proof of loss information, following up on vendors, generating, maybe invoices, sitting on phones with carriers, to get an update or something like that, or find out who the desk examiner is. Financial support. Some of this might be outsourced, like you might have a separate firm do your taxes, but someone in your company at least has to prep the paperwork for that. Payroll, invoices, mortgage processing, dealing with expenses from your vendors. This is where it starts getting a little tricky because people want to hold this information close to their vest, right? So I don't want anybody to know what my payroll is or who I owe what money to for vendors. Like somewhere along the line, you may have to let go of that and you're going to have to trust somebody. Maybe you hire a dedicated bookkeeper that comes in twice a week or 3 times a month. It doesn't have to be full-time sitting in front of you kind of thing. Management support is just that. It's a smaller version of you that is dedicated to just running your office staff or just running your adjusters. And you interface with them and they interface with the rest of it. For example, on our team, we have, a lead developer and then other developers that fall up under him. So When things are needed, it's communicated with the lead developer, and then he decides it goes to this person or that person who has the time to work on it, who has the bandwidth, who's an expert in this thing. And he makes those decisions from there to take the onus off of you. Next up is business support. And this is working on your business, not in your business. This is like business development, that sort of thing. Some of the other things we have in our marketing, salespeople you can bring on. There's a whole bunch more roles, but these are just kind of the ones that I put here. So once you realize what tasks you want to take off your list first, that's going to help you determine what type of person you want to hire. So once you figure out what type of person you want to hire, we have to set SMART goals. Now, SMART goals, when you want to set SMART goals for hiring a specific role of person, this is what SMART stands for, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. And we've always added, like as efficiency geeks, we make them smarter goals, right? Evaluation and readjust. So this is fine and like very fancy and very corporate, but what does it mean for your public adjusting company? What that means is when you are going to hire a person, what you need to provide and what you need them to provide to you are these. When we say specific, we want you to clearly define their work or their unit of work, and not saying in small companies like you stay in your lane. Like my team can't help the developers out, and I don't really want the developers on the phone with you guys, to be quite honest with you. I adore them, but not really. But within your kind of circle, you should be able to help out amongst each other. I don't want to hear that your mortgage processor won't answer the phone because somebody had to go to a doctor's appointment. Like that's baloney. Everybody should help everybody out, talents assuming. But each person has a clear role that they're supposed to fill in their work. Measurable is if you can't measure it, if you can't improve something, if you can't measure it. How do I know our business is improving? Well, our clients are staying longer, our time to claim is smaller, our fees are higher. Like you need to be able to measure these things. Achievable is exactly that. If you tell me that I need to triple the size, if you're hiring a salesperson and you're like, you have 3 months to triple my revenue, like that's probably not achievable. You really, pardon me, have to work with people to see what is accurate, because what you want and what can actually be produced may be two different things. Relevant is exactly that, making sure your staff or this new person you hired is able to work on the right tasks at the right time and that they have the correct resources. Next is defining a predictable stop and start time. It shouldn't take you 15 rings to answer a phone. It shouldn't take you 3 months to run an estimate, those sorts of things. Make sure that you give people average. And it's difficult as an owner, I will tell you this right now, because when you want to let go of a task and you don't really want to let go of it, and you're like, well, I can do this better myself. You can do it better yourself because you've been doing it for umpteenth amount of time. When a person is new, they're going to take longer. But would you rather someone take a little longer, but still within an acceptable time range, or you do it and suck your time? So you have to kind of make that trade-off. And the first hire is the most difficult. It requires the most trust. Evaluation is that you and the new hire should be making notes along the way, how the process is working or not. Even if you're hiring I don't know what minimum wage is. I really don't. So we'll say $8. If you're hiring someone at $7 to $8 an hour to answer the phones for you, they're still a professional. They still are supposed to be the expert of what they're doing. They're kind. They know how to transfer calls. They know how to, soothe somebody that's ticked off on the phone. They have very professional skills. Treat them as such, ask them for their suggestions on their own job along the way. And then, of course, make time to actually implement these changes and convey them out to the rest of your team. If you're going to change how mortgage processing works because you and the mortgage processor came up with a better way to do it quicker, make sure the rest of your team knows, even if they don't know the exact process, which they probably don't need to, they should know that at least something has changed. And then, so let's look at this a little deeper. And this is why I wanted to dive into this so that you have them in the handouts for sure. So when you hire someone, and I talk about the 90-day, you're actually running two parallel, projects at the same time. I feel that within a 90-day onboarding of someone, you should have one project from them that can be completely done in 90 days. I hate to say this, for better or for worse, if they don't work out or they leave after 90 days, at least you've gotten a good project or a unit of work out of them. But also along that, well, then you can give them one after that and one after that. And hopefully they've started to develop their own. Like I hired someone and she was like, oh, I can do that for you. And I was like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah, let me take it over. Like people like that are proactively looking out for ways that they can help and take things off of your plate. That's the kind of person you definitely want. If you hire someone that just sits there at their desks and waits for you to drop a file on their table, that's not good. They should be proactively looking for other things to do. But you can give them 1 3-month project, or even I gave my gal 2 1-month projects, and then we kicked off a bigger one starting the 3rd month. And then her day-to-day things, right? So she has those 2 parallels going at once. So we say focus on one area that we need to improve. So come up with something to give them as a project. How can we improve it? What are we going to do? What tools do you need? How does this one process help you? How does it help the company? So that's what you need to define as well. Don't give people busy work to get them started. Give them actual things that move needles for you, whether that's time or resources or money, because no one wants to come into a job feeling like they're just doing crappy busy work. They will feel expendable. Evaluate on a bi-weekly or weekly basis or monthly basis. I'm going to give you the checkpoints for that and then readjust it as you see fit. One of my projects with my new hire actually went on much longer because I was the stumbling block. And then one of them that was in month 3, she's like, oh, I can do now. And she did it in month 1. So she saw the whole thing out in front of her. I didn't trickle feed it to her. I said, this is what I expect you to do in 90 days. These are our points that we're going to talk about it. And she, because I basically took one thing away from her because I was the bottleneck. She's like, I'm not going to sit here idle. I'm going to go do this other thing that Lynette said month 3. So that was brilliant, right? That's what you want. So this filled out is going to look like this. Say you want to hunt. We're going to talk about front-end people. This is what we're talking about for this webinar. Specific. All right. So we're going to work on customer service response time because people call me and my cell phone is on my business cards and I can't always open my phone and customers get ticked and I miss leads, right? Because they call and I can't answer. So they just call the next public adjuster in the phone book, so to speak. So you switch out, you give them the phone. Well, we're going to talk about that in a bit. So I'm going to hire you and you're going to help me with customer service or customer response time, even if that's just leads or prospects. So what are we going to do to make this better? How do I know that what you're doing is working? We're going to, client retention. We're going to see how many people cancel their contracts, how many people complain, how many people don't want to pay their fee, how many people email us, and how long does it take to email back? So you come up with those ideas for yourself. Achievable is just that, that new person isn't going to turn every client around immediately. It takes some time. And something, you've got to make sure that it's actually within someone's wheelhouse. So here you're going to create and implement. Maybe you're going to send welcome emails. That's the first thing that she does. Then she's going to check in with people, 10 days after that or whatever the deal is. And like I said, I have all these written out because I've worked with your industry for so long. I know what works. The next thing we're going to do for front office is we're going to say relevant, right? So why is this relevant? Because now they're taking that work off of you and they're giving it to themselves and they're taking it themselves. It's relevant because it increases your productivity and your focus and so many other things. It's relevant because it helps clients feel loved and supported and heard and that kind of thing. Sometimes a good customer service or front-end person is just going to listen to that senior citizen talk on the phone for an hour because it's what it is. If you've ever had a senior as a client, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. I love them, but they do like to talk. So, take that off of it. That is a big productivity boost for you. It's not wasted time. You also have to think about that. I see people who are like, you have to get them off the phone. You have to get them off the phone. You have to think about when you get off the phone, how does that client feel? Are they excited about talking to you? Do they feel like you cared about them? Or do they feel like you just wanted answers and then get off the phone to go do something else? How you leave a client feeling after communication is huge. Front-end office folks can help with this when you probably don't have the time. So timely, this is what we're going to talk. We're going to say, all right, these are the things you're going to work on. We're going to work on a welcome letter. We're going to identify milestones. We're going to do these things. And these do couple in with your 90-day plan. So these are the things I'm looking for a front-end person to do, either to get off of your plate or to implement things that you never had time for. So one of the most shocking revelations to me as a business owner is that my staff can do things that I never, ever had time for. So they market, they, go out on Facebook, they have conversations with people, they're on Twitter, they're helping share resources for some nonprofits. And I was like, what do you mean you're doing all this? And they're like, yeah, I have time, Lynette. Lynette does not have time to go sit and look for nonprofit resources that could help, you guys do your taxes for free, or you guys get grants to help your business stay afloat during COVID. But the person I hired does. Like, that's crazy. So, okay. And then what that leaves me more time is to, do the things I love, which is webinars and stuff like that, which help you guys out. So one person and two people, it's not a duplicate. You're actually getting 4 times as much work out because now we can each focus in that. So that's what timely is. Like, I don't have time to do this, but somebody else does. Okay. So talent philosophy. This is something that public adjusting companies have very defined personalities, in my opinion. I know and work with and love and adore public adjusting companies that are they're very aggressive. They're like, they've got shrink wrap cars that say, we sue the insurance companies. They screwed you. We'll screw them twice as hard. I mean, I've literally seen this. And they're very aggressive. They're very gruff. They're very no BS. They come in with just like I don't want to say an attitude, but I guess bravado. And that's that kind of thing. When you have a person that's like that and they seek out claims that they can really sink their teeth into, right? Really fight with the carriers. And that's what they love, because they're going to that's how they feel. That's their secret niche, right? That type of person cannot have a front end person that is very soft. And we're going to talk to the carriers and do this. And then they get the principal of the company and he's up in their face. It doesn't work. What he wound up doing is hiring a woman, and she's an ex-Marine. So you can imagine a female ex-Marine. She's like a parachuter or something. I don't even know. She was basically the female equivalent of him. She'd get on the phone with the carriers and she's like, you're not yanking my chain. It all matched together. And they did very well. The clients that liked that kind of work ethic or attitude gravitated towards them, and the clients that were very didn't want it and were like, well, we just want to make sure we're taken care of. They didn't want a big fight with the insurance company. They just wanted help. They weren't his perfect client. And he kind of repelled them, to be quite honest. And then there's kind of the other way. We work with companies that are generational. They've never spent a penny on advertising in their life. Everything comes to them from referrals. They're very nice. The carriers like working with them. Even carriers have referred people to them. So you're thinking about your talent philosophy. What is your personality of your company? What are you like? And even if you're not like it now, what do you want to grow into? If it's just you or just you and one person, what do you want to be? When Dave and I started this company years and years and years ago, it was just both of us. But before it was ClaimWizard, we built the software well before we had a company for it, so to speak. And we wanted to be helpful. We wanted to be, we're funny, we're personable. We want to help people. I don't want to say, here, go do it. If it's not right for you, then whatever. We want to help people. And that's kind of our vibe. That's our talent philosophy. So we hire people that want to help other people, just the same. But if you're trying to figure out what your talent philosophy is, think about these questions, right? So on performance, if you have someone in your company, regardless, adjuster, office, I don't care who, what are the consequences of not performing the task on time to the best of their ability, etc.? And then what are the behaviors? How much of their behaviors matter? Are they chatty? Are they kind? Are they a pushover? What are their behaviors? The next slide will show this in more detail, the real life versions of it. How are they Differentiation, how are they allocating their resources and things like that across their performance potential. Transparency is how open do you want to be or should you be with your employees, and how open should your employees be with you? And this is a big one. And accountability. So how much do you want your team to be responsible for cultivating other people? Just because if you have an office person and you hire another office person, are you responsible for training them, or is the other office person happy to have a buddy to share work with and help with that process? Or are they like, hey, you hired them, you train them? You have to think about that. So what this looks like in real life is this: performance. And I've worked with public adjusters that are all in column B, or both, mix of both, right? Are you quick to fire and replace people? If they screw up on one report, are they out? You're like, you guys are a dime a dozen. You screw up, you're out. And people get petrified. They hide things because they don't want their boss to see. And then the claims are screwed up. Like, think about that. Or are you more open to work through issues? So if someone has something that went wrong, do they want to hide it from you and put your company at risk? Or can they go to you and say, I screwed up, I put the wrong amount on this thing, help me, like, what can I do? Like, what's your vibe on that? It's your company culture, honestly. Your behavior is next. Is your team gossipy and cliquey? Or are they welcoming and helpful? And I've seen this with office staff mostly, where there's a group of office staff, us old hens like it that way. And then we have somebody new and we basically make that poor person's life miserable because she's just not our type, or this is how we run things. We don't need more help. And then they wind up keep pushing people out of that position. Or are they helpful? Are they willing to sit at lunch with someone and work through a process? Like, you have to think about, what is your team like? Differentiation is, do you criticize bad performance or do you reward good performance? You have to think about that, how you are with the team. I think about this with my kids all the time. Like, I know my son is the first one. He has to be like, you have to hold his feet to the fire, or he's going to find every loophole that he can for you. So you got to show him that you know what he's up to, right? And then my daughter is very much like, you can't do that with her because she'll shrink back. She wants to be patted on the head for good performance. Like, she doesn't respond to the good stuff. So you have to figure out how you want to deal with your team. Transparency is, do you hide info from your team members or share it? And by this one example, what I most drastically mean is, I see companies that want to hide their client list from the office people that are supposed to be emailing the client list. They're like, well, can you just share the email, or can we have them send the email and not see the email address because we don't want them to contact the client independently? Like, that's a trust issue. And if you're hiring people that you think are stealing your stuff, that's one thing, but you should trust until it's not proven to trust. Or have you been burned in the past? Or do you need to put measures in place that people aren't stealing from you, so to speak? Or you want to share with them and say, yeah, here's our clients. This is what our client fee is. They don't need to know how much money you make, but like, obviously your fee is on your contract. So it is what it is. And next is accountability. Are you micromanaging your team? Just like I said before with the bank, do they fill out the deposit slip in the office, or do they take the checks to the bank and then fill out the deposit slip? If you say, this is how you have to do it and you need to show it to me every time before you leave, that's micromanaging. Or do you trust their professional abilities for that which you hired them for, and let them be responsible for their job and the outcome, which is get the money into the bank and balance the checkbook? So you have to think about letting go for that. Control freaks, type A people like myself, I'm reformed. I'd be like, you have to list the checks in the order of highest to lowest. Like, that's how crazy I would be. Let it go, Lynette. Like, just start singing like Elsa. Let it go. You worry about the outcomes, not the process in a lot of cases. So, all right. How to design a 90-day front-end office onboarding plan. So I'm giving you, if you want a front-end person, this is what you need. And I have another resource for you at the end. So we're going to go through this. So week 1 may look like this. It doesn't. And someone had mentioned you may need to bring in people faster than this. So if this looks like a good pace for you for the type of person that you've hired, it's a good pace. If it's not, take this idea and rework it so it works for your own company. If you don't need them to do some roles, then take the role out and put in the own thing off of your own time checking list that you need to take care of. Like, do that for you. But I will tell you, the first week that a person is in a company really sets the mood for that. Don't leave them hanging. They're part of your team. They're part of your family now. Make them feel that way. So here we have week 1. Some of this should actually be week 0. We're going to talk about that. You need to set their stuff up before they get there. Payroll, make sure they understand your history. If they don't know what public adjusting is, give them a plan. We're actually making a free course for you guys to teach them all about that. What's a public adjuster? What's the history with the industry? What does a PA do? What are they responsible for? So if you bring someone in fresh, that they have at least a little starter plan for that. Next, I want you to tell them information they may need. Hey, here's your boss, and here's how you communicate with them. Here's your office staff that you work with. Here's how to communicate with them if they're not in the same place. What's their role? Hey, this is Margie, she does this. This is Destiny, she does this. This is Dave, he does that. So they at least understand, like, don't go to Dave with customer service things because he's a developer, he doesn't know. Give them that. Tell them who their point person is, like kind of who their buddy system is. So not necessarily a boss. If it's just you two, you're it. Tag, you're it. But if you have just even one more person in your company, or I know a lot of solo people tend to work with their spouses. So if you hire someone and your spouse has been working with you, even though it's technically kind of their boss, let your new hire use your spouse as the point person so they don't feel like they're interrupting you or they don't want to ask dumb questions. It should someone be a little bit more on a peer level so they can develop a camaraderie and be able to openly ask questions to them. The 2 most important pieces out of every step are goals and deliverables. This is very black and white. After week 1, you should be able to do these 4 things. And at the end of week 1, you chat with them for 15 minutes. Let's look, and you give them all 90 days up front. Don't trickle feed this to them. Let them know what they're in for. All right, do you know how to do this? Do you know how to take a call? Do you know how to send a message? If they say no, okay, take the minute or 2 to teach them there, or say, okay, remember, this is what we showed you. This is your notes. Mark it. Next week, we're going to go over the same thing. If they say 2 weeks later, we still don't know how to answer the phone, well, now you're looking at them. Week 3, they still don't know how to answer the phone. Well, now we're really looking. So you have measurable points along the way. And then wean them into their responsibilities. Okay, if you've gotten these things up here, by the end of the week, your responsibility is now covering the phone, covering the email. Plus, what I always recommend is have them keep a running list of how things can be improved, questions they have. Notepad, paper on their desk, use Microsoft OneNote, whatever you want to do. They should always be writing down questions or suggestions going forward. So week 2, and we have more touch points in the beginning and then it weans out. Week 2 is everything from week 1, right? Well, now you know how to answer the phones and transfer them, etc. Now you start taking calls. Now you stop putting notes into ClaimWizard. All of these other things that are in there. Now you're going to start helping them. If mail comes in, how do we process it? How do we determine what's important? How do we determine what gets scanned in? You teach them that. Now, information expectations, very important. You need to teach someone that if they're typing an email and the phone is ringing, they shouldn't let the phone ring and finish typing their email. Like, the phone takes precedent. Let them know what you find most valuable, because if they have to make that determination for themselves, they may choose differently than you, and that's not going to set either of you up for success. Give them parameters that are measurable, right? Inbound client emails must be answered within the hour, within working hours, obviously. Inbound paper mail must be processed by the end of the day. Give them their things, goals and deliverables. After week 2, you should still not have unlearned week 1. Now you have to generate documents, all these other things, responsibilities, all of the befores plus these. And that's how we go through the process. Weeks 3 and 4 get clumped together. I'm not going to keep going over it. If you're on YouTube, you can pause. If you get the slides, you get the slides and all this stuff in there, nice PDF for you. But you can see we're working them in by week 3. So that third Monday that they're in, they should know how to generate a welcome letter. They should be sending it out. They should be communicating with clients. Like, you're bringing them up to speed pretty quickly, but some of the more nuanced things of what you're doing that may not happen on a day-to-day basis, they just need time to actually physically come across that task to do. At this point, they should be developing a rapport with your clients, especially ones that are onboarding in the beginning, because there's usually more communication with them. So, they may say, oh, I want to talk to Debbie. It's like, oh, okay. Like, you talked to Debbie before, here you go. Like, you don't want to talk to me, whatever. Like, that's what you want. You want them to develop that relationship with it. So you can see all of this information in here. So that basically takes you to the end of month 1. Then you have month 2. So they're still doing all the other stuff, and you're starting to bring them in. Maybe you want them to set appointments for your adjusters. Well, each adjuster has different quirks on what he wants to do, has calendars run. That's the stuff that's more nuanced that they have to learn more about the company to do it before they can actually successfully take those things off your list. Of course, you should, what I didn't put here, but what I actually put on the 90-day list is I calculate from the start date. I said, all right, you're going to start January 1st. So by the end of month 2, which is the end of February, so that last Monday in February, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to talk about this. Don't just leave them out to dry with this. Check back with them, or have their boss or somebody you've handed them off to check back on these things so they know they are being held accountable for these things. And then month 3, pretty easy. It's just, checking in with things, making sure they understand what's going on, how to run reports, making sure they don't have any lingering questions and things like that. So the part about this too, about reviewing and revising, as a boss, I don't want to do these tasks anymore, right? You don't want to do this stuff. You want to say, this is how I want my company run. These are the results I'm looking for. And when things happen or need to change, or you start working in a different state, or now I'm getting a lot of phone calls because office staff is used to running things for regular claims, and now they're working in Louisiana and it's all billable. They're like, how do I bill? What do I bill? How do I market? Like, all of these new things, and they're running, on a tailspin. Well, all right, now we, as a company, you guys, not me, I don't run your company, you guys should be reviewing and revising this. If you're working in a new area, sit down with your team and say, okay, this is how we've done it. Now we need to review and revise it to get things going. Someone had just mentioned here, it feels like we as owners have to be hands-on to keep on track. No. Because what really happens is, if business is working as usual, you won't know anything about it. You always need to be an escalation path. If something is seriously going wrong, weird thing, like maybe somebody's cutting payroll and all of a sudden the payroll account is empty, like something weird happened, you got hacked or something. Like, yeah, you're the owner, you need to know about that. But if the girl in your office runs payroll every 2 weeks and it works as normal, you should know nothing about it. You should have nothing to do with it except for to know she's handling it and it's done. And if, quite frankly, shit hits a fan, then you need to know. You are the owner of the company. When things go really south, you should. You're not, if they need to answer phone calls or emails or send out proof of losses, or maybe not proof of loss isn't a good suggestion, welcome letters, or contact clients to set appointments, you should know zero about that if they are doing it successfully. So you do not have to babysit. Absolutely not. It does feel like you have to keep your hands on it because you want to keep your hands in it, not because that person will need it. Once the training wheels are off after like month 2, 2.5, they should really come to you for almost nothing, to be quite honest with you. But you do have to, as a business owner, design your business. So if it needs to pivot or grow or change, you need to be able to go in and review and revise these processes. So if during this process, say, for example, what are your roadblocks did you encounter? Maybe you're working in a new state and the person is like, listen, I can't bill normally. Like, we can't, I don't have contacts out there. Like, what do I do? Oh, here's some contacts, go call them for dry out or whatever. And they're good. They should only come to you when they don't have answers, and they should know how to get to their own answers most of the time. If they see improvements, they may come to you and say, hey, we've always done, disbursements this way, but I figured out a better way. What do you think? So they're not coming to you and saying, how do I do disbursements? They're coming to you and saying, listen, I've been doing them, but I found a more efficient way. Do you approve? You look at it and you say, oh yeah, that works really well, go do it. Or maybe you're like, hey, this works and let's try this too. And it goes. You're basically brainstorming. You're not babysitting. Hey everybody, I wanted to add a little something special at the end of the video here. If you check out courses.claimwizard.com, we have pre-done for you multiple different 90-day onboarding plans, including the 90-day onboarding plan, questionnaires to help you develop which tasks for each specific role are needed for your company, not just ones that Lynette says that you might need, as well as job listings, so you can copy and paste that and post for jobs, as well as interview questions, quizzes, those sorts of things, and as well as ideas to help onboard people into your company more self-sufficiently and to set them up for success going forward. So if you're interested in checking those out, visit courses.claimwizard.com. You can go there and register for the front end office package for free. But if you want to, the rest are up for sale individually or by bundle. Thanks a lot. Take care and stay safe.